thousands of years, the rugged coasts of Haida have been home to the Haida people, their rich traditions intertwined with the ocean and land. But when the outside world came to these remote islands, their vibrant local culture was suppressed and weakened, and it's been an ongoing struggle to try and revive it.
And let's welcome these wonderful artists who are dedicated to continuing our culture and bringing back a lot of stuff that has been taken away from us.
These are the carvers who etched this totem pole into a 15-meter cedar trunk. It's about to be raised at a community gathering, and it's a moment Brandon Callio doesn't want to miss. He works on Haida Gwaii as a fisherman and is raising a young family together with his wife, Adina Young. The ceremony is a moment for them to reflect on how history has shaped their identity and what's at stake in the future.
When I was going to school, my teacher said when culture is scarce, one of the first things they lose is Haida language. And then not long after the language is gone, then the culture is gone. And that's scary. That's really scary.
Because while Haida art is flourishing, the Haida language is not. It's gravely endangered. But it's about to get some exposure.
Keep it nice and quiet, please. Pictures up. Let's roll
on the big screen.
We're ready.
Roll sound.
0 Alpha, take 1.
And roll camera.
In this lush forest, filming is underway for the first feature film entirely in Haida, a movie called The Edge of the Knife, inspired by a Haida legend. There are 22 cast members, including Brandon and Adina. What made you want to be in the film in the first place?
My husband, he had talked about the auditions, and I wasn't really into doing it.
We'll do it one more time and just a little bit.
And he kept really encouraging me to audition.
So she did, and they both got parts in the movie. Like the vast majority of the cast in the film, they've never really acted before. But some of those behind the cameras have plenty of experience. The executive producer of this movie also made the hit Atanarjuwat, The Fast Runner. The 2001 film received international acclaim. It was the first movie to be made in Inuktitut.
Okay, let's start again.
Okay, let's reset.
But in many ways, the Haida film is even more ambitious because most of the cast don't actually speak the language. On Haida Gwaii, Haida speakers are in short supply, and that's one of the reasons for the whole project in the first place. This film has been in the works for years. It began when community leaders were looking for a way to revitalize the dying language of Haida. Less than 1% of the population speaks it, and most are over the age of 75. One of those fluent speakers, Dolores Churchill. She's one of the actors and helped translate the script.
And they even said, you know...
She and her sister are two of the just 20 people who speak Haida today.
I always thought in Haida.
She's now 88 years old, but vividly remembers hearing a story in her younger days.
Yeah.
An elder spoke of a prophecy and of the fate of the Haida language.
She said that when these people came, we would forget how to speak our own language. And she would cry. And everybody else would kind of smile or giggle because we were all speaking Haida. And we couldn't imagine that we'd all forget how to speak our language.
Students today learn Haida in class, but for decades that wasn't the case. Children were sent away to residential school and discouraged from learning the traditional language.
It's our language. We're trying to take it back. It was forcefully taken from us, and we're doing the best we can to bring it back.
Katla.
Rhonda Bell is a self-professed language nerd with a lifelong passion for Haida, but even she isn't optimistic. Haida is notoriously hard to learn. There are sounds that don't exist in any other language.
It's just hard. It's hard to talk about because we are losing it. And then there's no elders left anymore to ask questions about the language. It's just hard to imagine that younger people now have to be the language keepers.
They're learning it, and in some cases, teaching it too.
Just knowing that there's hope that kids are going to be able to grasp our Haida language and then taking that forward, and hopefully they could teach me a little along the way.
Brandon has little knowledge of Haida because he didn't grow up here. As a child, he was adopted and raised on BC's mainland. He only returned to Haida Gwaii as an adult, which is why learning his lines was particularly challenging.
It was a little bit nerve-wracking, just sort of, they handed me the script and then they told us the lines, what we were supposed to have learned, so. But we just took it step by step.
You got your lines memorized?
All of the actors were sent to a 2-week language boot camp, an intense cramming session where they learned about pronunciation and constantly rehearsed. Brandon and Adina's entire family got parts in the movie, and before filming began, they tried to get into character at home.
I said to Brandon one day, I said, "Gatawe lika isti," and he said, "Oh, okay," and he grabbed me a glass of water, and Presley laughed so hard. She said, "Dad, Mom wants a fork, not a glass of water," so.
Once production began, her family, along with the rest of the cast and crew, camped out on set. Most of the filming took place in Yon, an ancient Haida village and gathering place.
Come along at the same time Sam's doing it.
Once the film is finished, it will be shown at festivals, but its primary audience will be right here on the island, where the crew hopes it's a teaching tool. Inside this language class, students are not only learning Haida, but helping to create a permanent record of the extensive vocabulary. Harold Williams is what's known as a silent speaker. That's a group of people who are familiar with the language. They grew up hearing Haida around their homes, but don't speak it themselves because they never learned it.
Did you ever dream that you'd make your acting debut at this point?
I never ever dreamed I'd be in a film, making films and all that. Never dreamed about that in my lifetime.
This is Harold III then?
Yeah, this is Harold III.
In the movie, Williams plays a grandfather, a role he also has in life.
When he gets a little older, I want to start teaching him Haida and he could learn. So that's my hope for him.
That's shared by many of the older generations here, a hope that the children can learn Haida in a way they never did.
I hope they see the importance of what the language really is. I hope the film encourages them to keep learning and to understand the importance of why we all participated in the project.
Haida history is being made. Another pole is going to stand.
It's an attempt to resurrect a part of their culture that's been quickly slipping away.
Guys ready?
For Brandon, all of those hours rehearsing his lines ignited a personal desire. He wants to help revive a language that he never really knew. Because only a few thousand Haida people remain, and with each passing year, there are fewer fluent speakers. If those left don't take up the language, the question is, who will?
We've come almost to the brink of losing our language, and that's our connection to our way of life in the past. Carrying that over into the future, that's important, because without that identity of the Haida and where we come from, then you know, where do we go from there?
Well, they're proudly celebrating the culture they've been able to hold on to. They know that what happens over the next few years will dictate the future of the language, whether they're able to preserve what's been spoken here for thousands of years, or whether the traditional sound of the Haida will fade. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Haida.